We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Supervisor Locke with the invocation.
As we gather for this meeting, we call upon our Creator to be with us and to surround us with people who care and inspire us to make the right decisions. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move for the approval of this evening's agenda.
Been moved and seconded for this evening's agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Now is the time for anybody from the public that would like to address the board on anything on the agenda this evening. So if anybody from the public has anything to say on anything on the agenda this evening, now is your time to speak. Now is the time for the public to speak on anything of the agenda. Okay, that portion of the meeting will be closed. Communications and petitions from the clerk.
We have a notice of claim from AT&T.
A notice of claim from AT&T for a pedestal damaged by a county mower, referred to the Personnel and Finance Committee. A notice of claim from Eden Chapin for injuries sustained by her daughter while she was playing soccer at a 4-H camp, referred to Personnel and Finance. Notice of claim from Joseph Warney for injuries sustained when riding his bike on the Wyowash Trail in Winnebago County, referred to Personnel and Finance. Notice of claim from Harms Insurance Group for Mid-State Traffic Control Storm Companies Incorporated for damage to a sign that was hit by a Winnebago County highway snowplow, referred to Personnel and Finance. There's a petition for zoning amendment from Greg Giese in the town of Poygan, requesting a zoning change from B2 to B3 for storage, referred to Planning and Zoning. And then we did pass out, there was various resolutions from other counties, so we gave you a listing of those, and then they've been referred to the different committees. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Reports from committees, commissions, and boards. Supervisor Finch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A little bit of an update on the Northern End Dog Park. There was a nice article in the Post-Crescent a while back ago on it. I received some phone calls, but the one phone call I want to mention is a lady by the name of Colleen. She's so hopped up on the dog park on the northern end that she's already said that she would donate $5,800 towards the dog park. And then I referred her to Kathy Casperson because she's the chair of the dog committee park on the northern end of the county. And then when I talked with Cassie later on, they talked about a half hour, 45 minutes. She's all hopped up on it. I did get a couple of emails. One email was from a gentleman named Patrick. He says he's got 2 checks to be filled out. How much, I don't know. $100, $100, I don't have a clue. But he said he's got 2 checks to be filled out. I think the nice thing about it, what's going on is with this article in the Post-Crescent, a lot of people are beginning to come across on it. Also, there's a possibility now that the Gladfelter property is beginning to look a little bit more pleasant. All people concerned. We'll see what it takes. We're going to meet, that's Rob and myself, going to meet with somebody from Gladfelter sometime in the future just to talk about it, and whatever happens, we'll refer it to our county exec, and that'll go from there. But I just want to make that noticeable to the county board so they know what's been happening. Also, as some of you will know, that I was on the committee for the dog park on the north end of the county. I've taken myself off the committee. I had a talk with our corporate John Bogner, and I'll tell you what, for the new people here, if you have any concerns, if you're doing something that you're not for sure right, wrong, or different, please see John. This guy, he's super. He'll set you in the right passive way, and it's good because I've known John now for 22, going on 23 years, and I just appreciate what he's done so far for the county. So outside of that, have a good day.
Is there anybody else that would like to address that would like to report on their committee, or any other reports on the committees? Okay. Approval of proceedings from August 19th, 2014. It's been moved and seconded to approve the meeting for the 19th and August 19th, 2014. Are there any additions or corrections? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. County Executives Report.
I just want to draw your attention to two resolutions in the packet. One is to authorize a transfer of $15,000 from the airport fund balance for repairs to Taxiway B. It's important that these taxiways be kept in good condition. Minor problems with the surface on an airport taxiway is more serious than similar problems on roadways, and it's in need of repair. And I also want to draw your attention to Resolution 82-92014, which is the capital project to resurface the maintenance facility parking lot, and that one would be done with a bond issue. That's also an important expenditure. I know there's a lot of you that have not used the facilities parking lot for a long time, but any of you that do use it, especially after a rain, will realize that it's long overdue for repairs. So I would encourage a yes vote on that resolution as well. And that's all I have this evening.
Okay, thank you. All I have is Supervisor Lautenschläger had asked to be excused from tonight's meeting. So I would like to ask the board's approval for me to appoint Johnny Brewer to the county board. Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. At this time, I'd like to ask Johnny Brewer to step forward. Okay, I would like for you to repeat after me. I, Johnny Brewer,
I, Johnny Brewer,
have been appointed to the office of Winnebago County Board of Supervisors,
have been appointed to the office of Winnebago County Board of Supervisors,
District 16,
District 16,
swear that I will support,
swear that I will
you gotta
support,
raise your right hand too, that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully and impartially
and will faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of said office
of said office
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
You look like a nice young man. I have to have you sign this, and then you sit right next to the man with the green shirt.
Thank you very much.
You have to give that paper back to the clerk when you're done. At this time, I'd like Mike Elder to come forward and introduce the presenters from the National Center of State Courts.
Good evening. Tonight we are going to present to you the findings of a study that was undertaken, started several months ago, where we were looking for a way that we could accommodate the security needs in the courthouse, accommodate the offices that we don't have in the courthouse, the ones across the street in the safety building. That's branch 6, the family court commissioner, or the court commissioner and family court counseling. We would like to get them back under one roof, increase the security here, take a look at how we have operations going on in the courthouse, And it was a long search, but we finally found an organization called the National Center for State Courts. And this organization is in place as a result of one of the Supreme Court justices a number of years ago deciding that we needed a non-partisan, unbiased organization that can take a look at our court systems and help us improve it. The office that we dealt with is based out of Denver, and tonight I have the project manager for our courthouse study. His name is Chang Ming Ye, and he will be here to go over our findings. Chang Ming?
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. My name is Chang Ming Ye. That's an interesting name in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, I think. But anyway, Oshkosh is more stranger to me. Anyway, by the way, just share with you, Oshkosh, I understand before I came to Winnebago County and had the meeting, at first I saw the name brand wardrobe and clothes line, infant children line. Oshkosh, that's a very famous Japanese clothes line. And that's why my first question is there a big textile industry in town? Oshkosh. Anyway, okay, let's get back to the business. And my name is Chang Ming Ye. I've been a court facility planner with National Center for State Courts for 27 years. My background is architecture, engineering, and computer science. And over the past 27 years, working with National Center for State Court, which is headquartered in Williamsburg, Virginia. But I'm based in Denver, Colorado. That's the consulting branch located. And I've been working with Center for over this 27 years, and primarily my assignment is to help the local government and the trial court to handle some of their facility issue. And facility issue is also a very expensive issue. And since we have lots of courthouses around the country facing the same issue as you are dealing with, you have a very aged facility, but it's a very beautiful, sound structure. And however, the issue about some of the things we never faced 20, 30 years ago, all for this building is almost even longer, okay, which is this operational efficiency and also user friendliness and also building environment issue. And nevertheless, everybody has this question in mind about the security and personal safety. So we are dealing with the age structure and how to make it more adaptable to today's operation. Also, since this facility improvement effort should be a long-term rather than short-term bandage. So we really need to look at what's down in the future. The system will evolve. The core system will evolve. How do you envision the future service should be provided and delivered to the general public? When we talk about delivery of service, then that's a different issue. It's a changing society, changing needs from the public on the core system. So that get involved in the operational issue. And also the last important thing is the service quality. In the court, 15 years ago, people got the impression, okay, that's where the place you try the criminal or the bad guys were there. Today, not the case. You still try the bad guy in criminal cases, but there are many other cases. It's like juvenile cases, family cases, and civil matter. Those people get involved is the average people like you and me or our children. And so they are not criminal. However, because the nature of the business handled in the courthouse, first of all, it's very confrontational, and second, it's personal. Today, there's a new element, very personal. So privacy, confidentiality, those things all come into a mix. That makes this facility planning more complicated. And in the past, there were no space standard designing courthouse. People just design it, and that's the way to do it. Today, even state of Wisconsin doesn't have its own space standard, which governing the requirements, space requirement of the court facility structure. That's why when we try to address this facility issue, three things we want to keep in mind. This is a long-term service. We need to know what the future may be. We need to be able to quantify the requirement. Okay. And second is about the nature of the operation. They are changing. We need to embed the latest trend of the core services to the public to address the public need. The third thing is any facility improvement costs money. Okay. We need to find a cost-effective solution and to address what you can afford, what are required to provide. So there should be balance between the need and the want. Okay. And so let's get back a little bit to describe, explain to you how we address those issues through the study. Basically, the three issues we try to identify. So this will be a short PowerPoint presentation. First of all, I need to warn you, it's not a 1 hour or 2 hour long presentation. It could be short and sweet. 20 minutes. Okay, so everybody can finish their business and go home.
Well, we allowed you for 2 hours, so keep going.
Okay. Right. I guess briefly we want to say what the work we do. First of all, we did some statistical work to analyze what the future may be. That's why project orientation is very, very important. We first come to in town to talk to everyone involved in the process, from the county management perspective and also from the court operation perspective. We try to gather all the data, okay, being available to us. And we also did some basic research. And the data we collect and use in the analysis, including the demographic, which is the population of Winnebago County, from the official source. Those data were published either by U.S. Census or through official publication document. Okay. And also, we look at court data to address the workload issue. We use the historic case finding level over the past 10 years, basically from year 2003 to 2013. Okay. Every year, there's an annual report published by the Wisconsin Supreme Court, identify the type of cases filed into the circuit court. So we use those caseload data on various case types handled by Winnebago County Circuit Court. And the third thing, we use some survey data. We survey the user, the employee working in the system, because those people will occupy space. Those people provide service. So they can share with us some of their concern about their work environment and their expectation, okay, into the future facility improvement effort. Where do we? And so we also come in to tour the facility and eyewitness firsthand to see how the service activity and process being handled in the environment. So that help us to appreciate the specific nature of the business, and also that's unique in Winnebago County court system. And we did some overview about the existing system, the building, the structure. As I stated, it's a very sturdy building. It's a good building. And we look at that to identify the major issue which may require some future attention. Attention means require work, require money to fix. And then we do the facility needs assessment. This sets aside all the data gathered in the previous task to identify some, to simulate the future model, maybe the core model. We use some statistical model to simulate the future down the road. The planning so far been done is based on 20 years projection, starting from 2015 for another 20 years, 2035. Right? And use that projection model, we're able to infer what's the likely future may be. I'm not a fortune teller, and I don't have a crystal ball to read. So we had to rely on some empirical data and to look at a possible range of the future may lie. and we may pick one that's reasonable. I'm not saying it's 100% accurate, because if I say that, I'm a fortune teller, but I'm not. I can only share with you the possible range of the future likelihood. And that includes the determination of how many people work in the system. The first come to our mind is how many judicial officers will be, because they are the primary space user in terms of the space assignment, quorum, chamber. Those are big ticket items we want to identify. We also identify the support staff space and some of the general building space like that. The third one is we developed some new space standard based on today's national standard when they design courthouse. When we say standard, basically there's no standard. There are some good guidelines produced by various states, and we help with to develop. So we try to apply those space standard to what you may have here in Winnebago County. And then you will see, you will understand why the space we program today is a little bit different than what you have. But that's the reason is very clear. Those space standard is trying to address on operational requirements, such as security and other things. And the last thing is, once we have the space estimate, how many square feet, okay, we will need in the next 20 years, then we need to identify who could be stay in the building if we're not going to touch on the exterior of the building, trying to see whether we can fit the proper court system within the four walls of the courthouse building. Then we found out we couldn't do that because the building doesn't provide enough square feet based on the 5 floors you have. Then we consider some building addition to address the square footage shortage. And with that, they come to a very important consideration about who stay, who will move out. And that's a priority issue based on the operation, who will need to be there, depending on whether that's an essential element of the justice operation, and if any other not being rated very high on the justice operation, we may consider a different location for that. And since we are addressing a core facility issue. So based on those priorities, we developed some space concept of how the building program can be implemented and make some assumption about what's the cost required to implement. That's a general task we did. 5 minutes only, right? Okay. This just give a very quick go around about what's being done in the report. Today is a summary of the presentation. The report, draft report being provided to the county and with detailed information. So basically, you are looking from what we have here, the building, the number of people working in the system, the workload, and getting into the future. Okay. That's how general concept of space planning. And we try to, through this process, we identify what's the space implication, how many people will be there. And you have that level. Anyway, let's do that. So, hope I won't block your view. Okay. And give you some background about the future in terms of demographic development. We are looking at the population based on projection we have. Based on estimate of population in Winnebago County in year 2013, the actual count was the year 2010 U.S. Census data. So 2013, that's an extended actual extension. They estimate the county has 171,000 people. And then from there, the U.S. Census made some projection about the future growth of the county. They estimated the future population by year 2035 will be around 203,000, which, if you look at the growth, is about over the next 20 years, the growth is about 18%, based on what we had in year 2013. Roughly about 0.9% per year if you do a straight line estimate for that. Mike, next. But we also look at the core workload. Everybody think we're doing things differently. However, the case finding trend is the raw data, which has nothing to do. It's just the number of cases people file in the court. The court hasn't done anything. They collect the data. So we use the new case finding to identify what's the trend, people's needs of the court in terms of the cases they file. Okay. We look at the trend over the past 10 years, okay, based on different type of cases, and the average case filing level changed about 8.38% over the 10-year period of time between 2003 and 2013. With the detailed breakdown, you can see where is the emphasis. We can see lots of criminal felony cases increase, which in 10 years increased more than 1/3 strong. However, there are some reduction in other type of cases. That could be a good sign, okay, or less problem, but that could be another sign. For example, when you look at felony cases, how come felony cases over 10 years grows by 1/3, while the misdemeanor, which is also a criminal case, decrease, okay, almost flat, and criminal traffic almost reduced? What does that mean? It doesn't jive. Okay, serious crime go up, less serious crime go down. That may not be true because over the past 10 years, because the economy, okay, many of the local government are suffering from lack of resource. Economy went bad, county revenue and budget go down, so every agency got a reduction. That affect the law enforcement effort, that affect the prosecutor decision about how to best use their limited resource. And many times we saw in other counties, the prosecutor will focus on the serious crime and pay less attention to something lesser, okay, such as misdemeanor. So that's happened in more than just Winnebago County. We cannot be sure that's the case here. But obviously, you are still doing the best thing, try to address, to respond to the most serious crime. But obviously, less resource being put in some lesser crime or petty crime. And the same thing happened in juvenile criminal violation. That's also a sign some of the law enforcement effort may have some effect into that. Okay. That's just some of the analysis, but there's no definitive answer, but that could be some local experience can check with that. But over the past, how we look at the future of growth and determine what's the growth rate we should consider. Okay. Here we use the various model to simulate the different kind of growth scenario. Okay. And like this one, we use 4 different statistical models. The blue line is what's been happening over the past 10 years. It's like going higher and less, okay, recently. So yes, during some time before the recession, the case finding level were higher than today, okay, and for some unknown reason. But over that, you use a different kind of statistical model to identify the possible range could be. So using the 4 statistical model, we identify something will be between 30 and 70% range. It could be somewhere over there. That's the most likely future case finding level may evolve into. Okay, and that's just some background. For space planning, we had to make a decision, And where this point in the future may lie, maybe here or maybe there, and what's the most likely. Okay. That's, you use 4 different models to get some, 3 different models to get some average mean of those future. And that's some of the detailed data. We are not going to bore you with the math, okay, but you can see the growth rate coming up. And most important thing, you want to keep tracking on criminal cases, because this will occupy most of the judge's time. This will demand for most of the security costs for running the system, and this will cost a lot on your facility operation and personnel. And those are the areas that are continuing to grow over the future. Yeah. Then get back to the issue. This summarizes our preliminary estimate about what the growth will impact the future judicial officer. Okay. Because right now, the judge's workload is not at their highest peak. As you look at over the past 10 years, 5 or 6 years ago, their case filing level were higher than today. And so when you look at that, so what's the threshold for your planning a future? Because you estimate in the future we may have 10,000 cases, and so today maybe each judge get 1,500 cases, but you know that's not their peak capacity, because 5 years ago they were able to handle more cases, right? So to develop some threshold to be divided by the projected case volume, we use a 10 years average. Okay. When you don't have a real standard, you need to resort to the common sense. Okay. You use over the past 10 years, there were high point, there were low point. You average out to see that's a reasonable threshold you use to estimate each judge on average per year may handle this many cases. So use that. We identified the total over the 20 years. Right now you have 9 judges, including 6 regular circuit judges and 3 commissioners. And our estimate is that over the next 20 years, if you have 10 judicial officers, you should be able to cover the projected growth. Okay. That's a very, very important determination in the whole planning process. So with 9 judicial officers today, we think because with some additional capacity they could realize. So with all the growth, you probably look at no more than 1 additional judicial officer, which means could be 1 additional courtroom, could be 1 additional judge's chamber, and could be some proportional increase of support staff. Are we okay so far with all the numbers? Okay. Yeah, anyone who have questions, feel free to ask me. Okay. So after that, we did some analysis about staffing. Primarily, the staffing for judicial support staff, there are certain ratios, staffing ratio for like each judge chamber will have certain support staff provided. And so there are some existing structure ratio. And some will be from the survey questionnaire. We ask each department to fill up and tell us some of their workload and some of their concern about staffing level, whether they think the future may affect them in terms of the workload. Then with our own opinion, we try to formulate some estimate about the possible number of people who will be working in each department in 20 years. And those are some of the staff summary for the non-correlated staff estimate, the number of people. It's very, very modest growth, I have to say that. Okay. Since your population only grows by 18% over 20 years, almost less than 1%. And most of the time, your county staff level is pretty much affected by the tax revenue. Okay. Unless there's some additional industry that broaden your tax base, Then you look at the number of people, what's the base of your tax revenue may be. And with that, with a 20% increase of population in 20 years, and this is a very, very reasonable estimate about some of the stat increase. Okay. And this is some of the staffing. Let's move on. So to address what's the facility implication, we look at many of those issues. That's what today's standard. I'm the co-author of the Courthouse Skyline, which National Center published 20 years ago. And that addressed all those issues. And if anyone can tell me one building issue I have not covered so far on this slide, I will be glad to take that in the future. But this covers most of the issue today, okay, security, all those issues. However, this planning primarily is trying to address the functional adjacency. When we look at the space, okay, what's the most efficient arrangement of the space puzzle when they put them together, because they interrelate. There are people moving around, and there's a security, and also, most importantly, life safety. This has something to do with today's life safety building egress code. And this building has an issue need to be addressed as we look at the future improvement. And as we mentioned about space standard, this building has some feature of that, okay, of today's modern standard. Basically, the space standard we consider, like this would be the courtroom, for example, and here in front there's a public zone, and courtroom will be interface zone, and the private area such as judge chamber and support will be private zone. Basically, the building, we look at the future improvement concept is to provide this kind of three separate zones and provide certain interface for people in one area trying to access another area with certain access control. So that's what we call security. Okay. This is the area we have. If you look at the existing building, you do have some, but you miss a lot.
I'm waiting to see if you hit it. I mean, I have a concern about, I was walking in this morning and there was a lawyer attorney walking in, and he says to me, what are you going to do about us when we're in the court and go out in the hall and try to negotiate and tell our client what we're negotiating? And he says, is there a place for us to do that?
Go back. Yep. Backward. Backward. Okay, that's a great question. This tells you what it means. We have a courtroom, and this is the public hallway. And then we see this two space. We call that attorney-client conference room. That's the attorney can talk to their client in private rather than standing in the hallway. That's attorney-client conference room. And there's some standard about how big those space should be and what's the ratio of those space in terms to the number of courtrooms should be. That's all this space estimate we try to address and provide the environment. So you can see that every courtroom will have two attorney-client conference rooms, because basically you have two parties. And besides, there's a wide hallway for public to mirror around. But you can see some security arrangement. The red area is the security holding and security elevator and staircase. And prisoner will be moved vertically in a multi-story building through the dedicated prisoner elevator and be moved directly into the courtroom without going through the public hallway or going through the private hallway. So that's some of the space standard we try to provide. And as regarding to the judges, right now judge's office is also open to the public hallway. And like this arrangement, the latest design standard is to provide judges private office in the back and with some private corridor connecting to the public area. However, the movement of people from here to here will be controlled. And so judges can move directly into the courtroom without going through the public area and be affected by the litigant and their family standing in the hallway. Okay. These are some of the features we try to address in the design concept. And then when you come to the section plan of typical buildings, in a multi-story building, typically the prisoner are transported into the building away from the public observation, so they won't be moved in through the underground walkway, sally port, or tunnel, okay, and be moved directly into the holding area next to the courtroom and move into the courtroom without going through the public. And the public area has its own elevator, okay, for them to move around. The most interesting part is the private area. So the vertical circulation is we trying to provide their own elevator for them to move between floors, okay, without going through the public. Those are the features you do not have. And also, when you look at stacking of different floors, typically we will put some of the clerk's office, administrative office in the lower floor. This may reduce the elevator usage, okay, but put the courtroom trial environment on floor above. As regarding the security, everybody talked about security, and we are not going to make this as a fortress. And still, however, we need to use the architecture to provide some access control. So in the back area, there won't be people milling around the judge's doorway. And so we use a new technology to address this access control. We also need to address the security screening of public visitor coming into the building, which require, one, security screening of metal, just like as you go through the TSA at the airport. Second, you want to control the number of egress and exit the building, in the building that people can come in or get out. Okay. So use single entrance. That's also a design concept in the later plan we're going to show you. We are trying to control the perimeter and keep a primary entrance for the public to come in. Then we may consider a secondary entrance or exit for the judges, okay, who do not share the same public entrance with the general public. And also we want to address the security screening because we do need space. We do need area to accommodate the security personnel to operate. And this is some preliminary estimate of space requirement. The building right now has about 84,000 square feet. That's this old building. And with today's staffing level at the number of judges, okay, and applying to new space standard with additional attorney-client conference room, some of those things, but keeping this most of the courtroom to the existing size, okay, because we're looking at renovating the building. We don't want to drastically change or alter some of the space, such as courtroom space, and for some marginal effect. So we're trying to keep them to the current status in terms of square feet of the courtroom. We estimate the space requirement for today's staffing level is close to 100,000 square feet. And with the gross estimate, it could be around 108,000, less than 110,000 square feet. That's the three number we had to deal with. Okay, how do we provide those space? However, those space estimate was a sanitized space. When I say sanitization of the space, we try to reduce the cost of renovation and try to see any other cost-effective way to accommodate some of the non-core-related functions, such as the county treasurer, property tax, and general service. And we think if the county has some space available, existing office space, probably it will be very, very cost-effective to consider that be located over there. Okay, and those are the core function, and all the offices included. That's how this space estimate were produced. Okay. And I don't understand how the red box and blue box ship away from that. Anyway, this is the existing courthouse, okay? And we have a parking space over here. And right now you can see there's a big plaza where you walk into the building from the parking lot. This is the site we're dealing with. Okay. So, can you go? And we propose, based on the estimated space requirement and the available space in the building and the number of occupants, okay, for those departments, we propose a renovation plan plus a building addition to address a future space requirement with a different cost level. The red one would be a new addition, which basically sit at the current plaza level, a little bit larger than that. It's about 4,000 square feet per floor with a basement parking. And that's a new construction built again. So with that, we can address on the function. And then there's a major renovation of the existing building in terms of cost, which is all the bottleneck we saw today in the building. As you walk in the building from the parking lot through the plaza, it's a very, very narrow walkway because the building was not designed to use that entrance as the primary entrance. It should be on this side. But because of security reason, because the ADA issue, and we moved the and convenient. Most of the public park behind, so it's walking from there. And that creates some bottleneck over there. That creates some life safety issue. So we try to address heavily about this area. And also in this area, beside the passage, we also think that's a major service court of the building. Service court means stairway, and elevator, and public restroom. Okay, and those are a little bit more expensive as compared to interior renovation. So those are heavier renovation cost area shown in blue. And the rest light green, yellow area, what we call the IT tenant improvement. Okay, that's a basic building finish and touch up, carpet and paint, those kind of things. It won't involve a major alteration of the existing structure or the historic preservation. No, it doesn't. Okay, go. So with that concept, we propose the new addition, and you can see some of the space assignment. Okay, you will have dedicated prisoner holding area, and the drive-through tunnel area will be converted. We will create a drive-through garage. We call it a sally port. Okay, so prisoner vehicle will be driving through this area. The prisoner will be unloaded and moved directly into the holding cell area. Okay. We keep all the holding cell in the basement because we feel with the existing building structure, it's not cost effective or cost practical to keep holding cell on every floor because your personnel issue and also space issue. So we centralize all the prisoner holding and provide them with a dedicated prisoner elevator for moving prisoner to the upper floor. In the basement area of the new addition, we provide secure parking area for all the judicial officers. And so the judge, and then judges park inside can ride their elevator up to the upper floor. And the basement level primarily will be used for the function with less public foot traffic access. So that's about the record storage issue, all those offices which have needs for record storage will be kept their record in the basement. Okay. The main renovation will be on the first floor. When you see this new addition, this for 4,400 square feet addition, we have a new entrance, and we will have mechanical chairlift for wheelchair person rather than riding a long ramp because the space is limited here. But this is a covered front, okay, so away from the weather. People walk up here and get into the building through the security screening. So building security will be up front. And as they move to here, they have a new experience. They are not walking through a narrow passage. Now it's a major lobby area. That's a waiting area, security screening. We have different egress, okay, from the side. So that's all the security will go through here. And they will see we open up the enclosure of the staircase, but we still keep the staircase in the center, but open up the new lobby so they walk through here. The existing elevator will be kept, additional judges elevator, and also the prisoner elevator in the back. Going floor up, we think with all the quorum we have, we need to build additional quorum to address the magic number, 10 quorums, okay, of different sizes. And in addition to the quorum, we also understand the county shares this room with the circuit court. And however, this room has a very unique configuration. You look at this console's furniture setup, which is quite different than the quorum setup. So we would suggest consider dedicated space for a county boardroom, okay, with some ancillary space such as small meeting room attached and also AV storage space attached, provided over here on the second floor of the new addition. This long-term effect, this area could also be converted into a quorum, which may give you the 11th quorum. Okay. That may give you additional 20 years, okay, or 30-year use for beyond 2035. Go.
Whose idea was it to move the county board?
What's the idea to move the county board?
Yeah. I mean, this has been going on for about 10, 12 years that they're always wanting to move the county board out from here to someplace else. And this was the original county board. We let people in.
Yeah.
So I just wondered whose idea was it to move the county board?
What we're trying to do is we're trying to provide security to the building while we still have public access to it. So you hold your meetings at night, and when you open up the building to the public, you open up the whole building to the public. So if we can keep you in the county board on a lower level, it poses less of a future security risk in the building of people getting in here and being able to do something after hours while we have a public meeting going on.
So is the county board the only committee that meets here at night then?
Right now, I think at nighttime is planning and zoning has meetings,
In the basement.
and that I don't know what the future plans will be for that.
Where does that usually meet?
Room 60.
Well, he was hired to do a plan, and he come up with a plan. He's presenting his plan. This isn't etched in stone. or
No, I'm
anything.
just asking a simple
Yeah.
question.
I don't think anybody told him, put the county board meeting out and, make us a new county board meeting. He's coming up with ways to try to establish space.
Yeah. We are trying to address a space issue, and with the current setting, the space being used for different purpose, and however that affect the schedule. And just like in daytime when you have court, this room will be occupied. So we're trying to provide the flexibility in the meantime with some space that gives a long-term flexibility and provision for growth. Okay. Some arrangement. As you can tell that, and then this county board room will be connected to the private elevator for any security concern. They can use the same elevator going between floor to the entrance, okay, even going to the secure parking area. Okay. In existing quorum, we're trying to keep them intact because, first of all, they are not a modern quorum, but still they are very, very functional by itself. So, and also there's a historic preservation concern, and so we try to avoid changing the historic element in the building as much as we could, as long as they are still functional for the court to use. So we keep some of those space as much as we could. In the meantime, we try to capture some of the space, repurpose for office. In the meantime, we try to eliminate some of the unneeded hallway space. Because right now, this hallway space, we have to go through here and egress through here, according to the fire code. However, with the new arrangement and with the new staircases, we can change the emergency egress requirements so we capture some of the hallway space converted into office space, make better use of that. Okay. And these are some of the general idea. One new additional courtroom will be built. Okay, two more, sorry. And over here, that on this new addition, on the second floor, it will be a county board room conference facility, and on the same location above, it will be additional courtroom and chamber. And all the courtroom will be connected with private corridor to the best we could. Okay. And prisoner will still be moved from the elevator into the courtroom away from the public. The green area is the public hallway. And we will have the new public restroom and centralized together. As we look at the commissioner space, okay, this area we will suggest to remodel some of the space to integrate some of the waiting area and also commissioner office area together. With the three different kind of cost level we envision to that, the new addition probably will cost with 22,000 square feet and with a space plus the 4,400 square feet of basement for parking, and the construction cost with also the soft cost estimate is between $9 and $11 million with today's price. Okay. Which is run between $300 to $350 per square foot with construction unit cost. And also with two level of finishing, okay, so one we use $150 per square foot for the central core service area, and for which will be around 10,000 square feet of that for the entire building, and also the light remodeling, tenant improvement with $25 per square foot. That's the entire existing building renovation and remodeling may cost about $3.25 million. Okay. In addition to that, so with those renovation and new construction, we are talking about the cost between $12 and $14 million today's value. Okay. If you look at the implementation in the future, you're seeing about 3 to 5% cost increase, inflation per year on top of that. And in addition to this remodeling, we understand there are some maintenance work. Okay, they may need to be done in the future, but the timing of those, which is outside the scope of the study, we just list the major building maintenance items, may need to be addressed in the future at a different time. Okay. Done? Oh, go back. And those are some of the general information we were able to decipher so far. Any question?
Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If we were to install the high-end cost for $14 million for this renovation for the 108 square feet, 108,000 square feet, what would it cost to construct a new courthouse? I have read that the cost of construction is in the nature of $500 a square foot, so maybe $50, $60 million.
That's a mystery about construction costs. Okay? And we saw some very low-cost implementation but also we saw lots of high-end construction. And yes, the construction unit cost people use in the preliminary cost estimate may range from $250 to $600 or $700 per square foot. Depends on the location, and also depends on the labor market locally. And also another issue is about the building site. If you look at tight urban site, like in Washington, D.C., San Francisco, it costs maybe $1,000 just because it's so tight to work around, and there are lots of overhead costs on that. And however, we are looking at this new construction or extended the life, useful life of the old building. Okay. First of all, anyone looking at new building should not forget you cannot leave the old building behind unattended. And so there's a cost to keep using the building for whatever purpose. And that part is also a cost, in addition to the new construction cost you pay the contractor. Second is about the social fabric. And first of all, the courthouse has been at this current location been quite some years. Okay. Most of you are familiar with it, grow up with this environment. And so there's local preference sometimes. They will prefer to keep the historic icon, okay, in town. And that's where all the existing establishments have been built around for. And so that's another social issue.
Mr.
Yes?
Would it be safe to say that we couldn't construct a new courthouse for less than $25 million?
If you look at 110,000 square feet, yes, it will be much more than that. When I say even you use the same kind of very conservative estimate of $350 per square foot times 110, you're talking about almost $28 million. That's the cost you bid out to the general contractor, $28 million. Usually on top of that, you put another 30% on top of that.
I think that can put it in perspective for the
new building,
supervisors to see what it would
be
be to start from scratch.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it will be like a $35 to $40 million issue, aside from other kind of historic issue and local preference issue.
Supervisor Turner.
I had one question, or maybe two here. Are there any offices in the new construction that have no court interaction?
In the new construction, you mean about in the plan?
In the new plan, is there any offices in the courthouse that have no courthouse interaction?
Right now, most tenants we identify in the plan are mostly related to the court, and then there are a few offices, okay, and they have less related, but still some space may be suitable for them to use. And we couldn't identify any major court department. After accommodating them, they need additional space. That's why we find some of the fringe use of some of the less related office in the building. Did I answer your question?
Okay, well, I noticed that you did move a couple offices out of the courthouse that didn't have anything to do with the courts,
Right.
which I think is a good thing. One office that I do see that I don't think has a whole lot of court interaction is the Register of Deeds. And I was wondering, I mean, obviously they have a lot of files and space requirements. I think I looked at about 4,300 square feet for the Register of Deeds office. Mm-hmm. So it might be a consideration to where maybe they couldn't be moved because we didn't have other space for them.
That's a very valid observation. We look at that, okay, first of all, we have some very, very good space, like any floor space above ground. And then there's some not so good space, actually bad space in the basement. And so for those areas, we need to find a use of those. And so every department has some record storage, and a record of deeds has a lot of record storage. And that's why we find, okay, and also for those departments, those records are heavy load. And putting in the basement probably is the most structure sound solution to that. Even if you put it in the county administrative building, that building, the wood structure building, probably won't be able to withstand the heavy load of those records. Yeah, if you put it on the floor, the floor will sink. And so with those bad space, but those are very strong structure space in the basement, that's one of the reasons we consider this recorder of deeds office may be here. In the meantime, there are some other office, they collect money. So there's some land record issue, and still more or less lawyer, title researcher, they come here. That's how their function related and being considered a place in the building. It's not most related, but we find the structure may provide a good use of those.
Supervisor Gabbard.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for a very excellent concept, and that's what this is a concept. So well done and explained very well. I have a couple of questions. One is why you aren't moving the register of deeds and the county clerk, and I understand there's some money collections there, but you're moving the county treasurer, which again collects money. So in the storage of records, county treasurer has records to store. Currently, the register of deeds has stuff in the basement. We could possibly move them if we had a place for storage. The storage in the basement isn't fireproof. Yes, I understand the weight of the volumes and everything like that, but I was wondering why we didn't move them. You sort of explained that to me. On the $14 million, you have three other issues at the bottom: elevator modernization, window replacement, HVAC replacement. I seen those as happening because we were already talking about window replacement for this historic building, and elevator modernization. That's kind of a no-brainer to me. I'm not sure 400 is accurate, but it's a start. And HVAC replacement, I see those costs as being added on to the $14 million. And in that conceptual idea, what are we doing about wireless furniture, equipment in here? That's got to be added on to this also, I would believe, right? Because we're not going to have these same chairs in a courtroom that we would have.
Yeah, that gets into the issue of light finishing, and the tenant improvement. And if we are going to give a brand new furniture or furnishing, that's another 5%. On top of that, typically preliminary cost estimate use a percent. However, in the new construction, there is a soft cost fee which include the new furniture in the new space. Okay. But in the light finish, we're trying to reuse as much as we could.
Okay, thank you very much.
Supervisor Skellinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit about the projected increase in court filings compared to the projected increase in county population. It seems like through 2035, there's an increased projection of population of about 32,000 and an increased filings of about 50% of that. And is that something that you're seeing like consistent? Is that, or is there something in the underlying in the county that we're primed for like a crime wave?
Yeah, it's a mystery about the correlationship between the population and court case filing. I have to admit that, and that's makes this projection more troubling and challenging so far. But I guess there's based on two notions. Okay, the projection is whatever happened in the past may continue to happen in the future. That's what about statistics. You use the past pattern to project the future. That's how the general common knowledge people use. However, and then you see a disproportional growth rate between the population and the court case filing. So that's why besides relying solely on the population model to forecast the future, you want to balance that with the reality in the core business and the case filing. So there may be another case filing trend we try to identify. That's why we use different simulation model, either use the population, either use case filing, and to produce. And we found out the difference is 35% versus 70% in 20-year growth rate. And with that, nobody can say definitively oh, it will be 35%. And because in the past, it showed we were always wrong when we make that determination like that. So you try to say, okay, which different model I have a handheld card there with me, how do I do with it? I shuffle that and see what's the best way to massage the two different models and see what's the likely future. And as long as it doesn't deviate too much from our personal experience, okay, of the past, as also address on the foreseeable issue you're trying to envision in the future that may evolve. So then get back to the issue is, yes, why the population growth rate is less than the case finding growth rate. They are different, okay, they are different, just like case finding in the past. And we have seen during the recession, okay, over the past 5 or 6 years, and case finding all dropped. But as I explained to you, many of those decrease of case finding has a lot to do with the decrease of resource allocated to law enforcement, allocated to the prosecutor's office, so they don't have the personnel to handle this. That's why they choose not to fully enforce. And this happened, give you an extreme example, is what you see in some of the municipal court, the traffic cases. The traffic cases drop, okay? But you were saying, okay, we still have more people coming into town and everybody drive. Then how come the traffic cases may be lower? Yes, it is lower because fewer officers being assigned to the road patrol, and so fewer tickets being written. And that's we saw throughout the country, the same thing. And it's just the priority of resource allocation on the government side. And so you see the fluctuation. You just hope when you do the projection, there won't be another abnormal, okay, suddenly show up, such as another recession that hit. Because if it keep hitting us, it will disrupt the pattern. Okay.
Supervisor Hagan.
To piggyback on my, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your presentation, sir. To piggyback on my colleague's question, you said what has happened may continue to happen, and I'm looking on page 4. There were no page numbers, but it's the page that says Circuit Court Historic Case Filing Trends. I noticed that over the past 10 years, juvenile ordinance and forfeitures have been reduced by about 55%, and criminal misdemeanor cases have gone down by about 2%. And I think that's because of some of the very aggressive diversion practices that the county and the state.
Yeah, correct. Sorry.
So I'm looking at then, which I believe would be page 6. Again, there are no page numbers on your presentation, but I see that criminal misdemeanor cases are showing a growth of over 10%, and juvenile cases are showing a growth of about 48%. So I think that's contrary to what you said in regards to historically what has happened may continue to happen. If we're looking at it in those terms, I think that those numbers might actually decrease significantly. Again, it's a mystery, like you said, but I don't think that we can overplan. And when I say overplan, I point to a building on the north side of the county, which is a sitting white elephant that we built as a Huber facility, and spent considerable dollars on, I think millions, and it's just sitting there empty because that program changed. Maybe a question would be, what other Wisconsin county courthouses has your company rehabilitated?
Actually, before we start the project, we just finished the planning in Waukesha County. Okay. And they were facing the similar issue with the existing facility structurally no problem, but functionally obsolete. And so dealing with the growth issue, the pressure, dealing with the need to modernize the operation and avoid security incident and liability to the county. So they are trying to find some solution to address that. And that's the one we just recently completed. And okay.
So
in addition to that,
I think I probably completed several hundred courthouse planning projects.
So Waukesha County is the only other project in Wisconsin that you're currently involved with?
Yes, it's just recently completed.
Okay, and are they going forward with your plan, with your opinion?
It's the recommendation is not surprise to the county. It's the matter of when they can come up with the resource to do it.
Okay.
And that's why they keep holding the county dealing with the same issue over decades. I can only say that it's the issue about growth. It's about the lack of funding. It's a matter about priority of funding.
And then the last question is on the second to last page that says cost opinion on the top.
Mm-hmm.
It's it gives some totals for new construction, historic courthouse remodeling, but specifically under those headings, there's really not much of a breakdown. And I think that that's something that I would like to see, and I don't know if that's available or not, but we have some pretty nice pictures and diagrams and architectural, computer graphics and drawings, but there's really no price tag per floor or per new construction, intensive remodeling. It would be nice just to see a better breakdown of what the 10 million and the other 4 million are. Thank
Sure.
you.
I think with more information, that will help the county to make more intelligent decision. That's absolutely, you're correct about this. The nature of this project is to look at growth visibility and the cost implication. And so as we said that this plan are conceptual plan, and so we need to identify the concept, first of all, to see whether it works, okay, in terms of the flow of different circulation and access issue, and also meeting the space requirement. And then with the general rule of thumb to look at conceptual cost. And as you move forward, I would recommend the county to consider, after you decided to move forward, you need to conduct more detailed design programming and design cost estimate, because by then additional information will be discovered, and that can enrich the detailedness of the cost issue.
Supervisor Singstock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's my understanding that any changes to a courtroom are subject to approval by our district judge, and in a rare case could even go as high as the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Are you confident that anything you're proposing could meet any tests or standards put out by the state of Wisconsin?
Okay. The space standard is generally to address the courtroom activity and also the courthouse activity, and with the underlying support operation requirement. And so we saw the space requirement and space standard we use in producing the space estimate, square footage, is pretty much very generally accepted by most of the courthouse project. And so in terms of when we look at a courtroom, we first determine whether that's a suitable size, okay? And it depends on the calendar and something like this. That's why we determine some of the space could be continue to be used as what they're being used now. And however, when we try to make a recommendation of building additional space, such as additional courtroom in the new addition, we will try to address some way to enhance the existing resource you have by making a more standardized space. Okay. So in the future, yes, you will have an existing facility, some courtroom like this. And when you look at new building addition attached to this, the courtroom inside will be different. And however, those with a mixture of the old facility and the new space, we try to address the space use and to the best we could. I guess, to our knowledge, yes, the building with the $14 million, then you can use it for another 20, 30, or even 40 years long. It's quite a bargain as compared to come up with the $40 million today. to build something new, and then later on, after 30 years, you need to deal with another hurdle of space improvement. And as regarding whether the space center can meet the requirement, we can generally say yes. When you do that, we have this good security arrangement. It's not 100% ideal, just because some of the existing building limitation. And the cost to improve that will be very, very cost effective when you consider the resource you may have. And so we try to emphasize some of the important issue and address that through the building renovation. But in the meantime, we try to keep the most restricted function, okay, in the new building as much as possible. So when you look at the new addition, only one floor being dedicated for the county boardroom, but that with also with the provision and flexibility for future that can be converted into a courtroom. So if you look at entire addition, that cover the secure parking for judges in the basement, that cover the public entrance for the entire building. There's a single building entrance for the public where you have a security, and also with very impressive lobby area. And then all the floor above are used for quorum or the future adaptable quorum. That's the county boardroom. So that's, you put all the critical element in the new construction, which to supplement the existing building deficiency. That's a strategy. We deal with addition and how does that connect to the existing space.
Supervisor Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sir, over here.
You have so many.
And thank you for your report and your presentation tonight. I really appreciate it. When I first received the 85-page report, I read through it, a lot to absorb. I read through it a second time. Today, I went through with a highlighter and a pen, made a lot of notes, a lot of questions, a lot of observations. I don't think now is the time or place to get into all of those details, all that minutia. However, I will share with you a couple comments. First of all, in your opening remarks, and I wrote down, you said you were talking about operational efficiency, and task 3 that you had listed was operations survey. I have a number of notes from the district attorney who met me at the door tonight when I got here. He apologized that he could not stay, but asked me to share a few observations of his with you in the group. It says, and this is not all of his comments, I've just picked the ones that have to do with efficiencies. Missing from the report seems to be court scheduling practices, centralized calendaring, a discussion or analysis of specializing the courts and scheduling, file management systems between the court and clerk of courts that could possibly create efficiencies. And then with respect to the predictions for future needs, there appears to be some concerns as well. There seems to be an assumption that each agency/entity in the courthouse operates at peak efficiencies and is therefore used as the baseline for need. No analysis beyond what the entity is and what it does is included. Specifically, no analysis about efficiencies or savings based on reorganizing or better management/use of resources is included. Why are future criminal filings based on a county population when prosecutor staffing levels create the bottleneck? Judicial need is based on a 2006 study when there is a more recent study available. I guess I didn't ask a question, I just relayed his comments for the group. Thank you.
Go ahead, Drake.
Yeah, I think those are the typical issue dealing with a core operation management study, okay, workload study. And this, first of all, I want to say those are the elements, okay, that affect how the court operate, and then either internally or externally. Externally could be the perception, okay, given to people outside court system, how they see the building being used, how they see, interpret that, whether there's efficiency or not, okay. And internally, there's a management issue. And I guess, however, this project is about the building operation and facility feasibility issue. Primarily, the focus is trying to address some statistically, okay, from the operation today with some improvement, and that's how the future may be to quantify that. And as I say, as one comment is about the questioning about whether we are taking the status quo of today, use that at the peak volume, okay, or each judge may be able to perform. I think that's what the intent of the question. I certainly question and doubt that kind of searching, okay, is not what we being used in the study. As I explained in the presentation, we are trying to identify what's the threshold when you look at the number of cases a judge may be able to handle. And right now we understand the court are not operate at its peak. So we didn't use the status quo in terms of number of cases per judge. Instead, there isn't any threshold you can count on. So you look at statistically, one way to address that, you look at the back 10 years, as I explained in the presentation. We use the back 10 years, which include the high point peak and low point value. Okay? So use those over the past 10-year experience and try to develop some reasonable threshold within that 10 years, which is higher than their workload per judge of year 2014 or 2013. So the question, there may be misunderstanding, but certainly that's not the approach we use.
I have no more people asking to talk, so thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
There are no zoning reports. Resolution and ordinances. Ordinance number 7282014, amend Winnebago County General Code, Section 19.24, Parent 7, relating to the Sunnyview Exposition Center rental fee schedule. Supervisor Finch.
Chairman, I move for 72-82014. If there's any questions, Rob is in the back. He can answer them for you. Thank you.
Okay, it was moved and seconded. Supervisor Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a procedural question for Corporation Counsel. Ordinance 728214, the one we're discussing, was on the agenda last month and was defeated. My question is, how can it be brought back this month? It's my understanding, maybe I'm wrong, it's my understanding the only way it could be brought back would be if it was someone on the prevailing side that brought it back. You will note on page 49 of the minutes that we approved a little while ago from last month's meeting that Supervisors Konetsky, Keel, Norton, and Finch from the Parks Committee were not on the prevailing side. So it's my question, how can it come back tonight from those people?
Well, it's really up to the board to make a decision whether there's a substantial difference between... Am I on? Okay. It's up to the board to determine whether there's a substantial difference between this ordinance and the one that was defeated the previous meeting. My understanding was that there were changes made to the schedule. Is that correct, Rob? So you need to make a decision whether those changes were substantial enough that this is a substantially different resolution than what you had before. And by that I mean, if you change the word from and to plus or something like that, that's not a substantial change. So that's the decision that you need to make, and certainly, Mr. Rowe, you have the right to challenge that this has been voted on before.
I said it was a procedural question. I don't care about the body of the ordinance. If there were substantial changes, why would it carry the same ordinance number?
That's just a numbering thing. And maybe it should have been a different ordinance.
Okay. Supervisor Egan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question, then I have some other things I'd like to bring up, if you'll bear with me. First off, Rob, with this change, could you tell me what you plan on using the $15,000 for out there the next years coming up?
$15,000 is intended just to cover our overhead costs. The change that we're talking about is from the previous 5% to 2.5%. And the intent is that it simply covers what our overhead costs would be for the expo and its operations.
Are you talking about people or?
People, products, gas, utilities.
Okay. My second thing, Mr. Chairman, if you remember right, I voted against that last time, and as of right now, unless someone changes my mind, I will be again. I told you that there was some shows that we're going to be canceling out there. I do have it on paper here now, so if anybody wants to see them. There was some things that went on out there. I'm just going to read parts of them. That the WQHA show, state show, which I was part of when they went out there. I begged very strong to have them come up here, but anyways, having problems. They asked for a financial statement. And in this, at the same time, was brought up that the grounds was so bad at one time that they had to go over with their judge, and it cost them $100 per hour for a judge at one time. They've asked to have more screenings and that brought into the arena. And I know Rob's going to say, well, every horse person is different. Well, there is some. There's a difference between having a lot in there and a little, but there's been none in there. The outside arena, there's been nothing done with it. But they did great for the fair people. I'm not knocking that, but I know they had to go in there and they had to pump water out of that outdoor arena. Now, there's something wrong when we go ahead and we rent out grounds to people and you got to pump water out and you're sitting there paying a judge over $100 per hour more waiting because you can't use that arena. So there's a lot more here. A horse was shipped from Florida. Now, these horses come from all over, and the customer was trying to show the horse, and if it would have spooked, it would have been a $35,000 sale right there. That could have cost him. He ended up selling that come from Florida. There was a time that the mics, were screwed up and they were squelching out there. There was one of the kids out there had swore at him, and if I can find it here, said that, excuse my French, but we don't get paid enough shit and stuff to even worry about you guys out here. Let's see. Jesus. And then the biggest thing I guess I wanted to bring through, which is true according to this, it's only $15 from what I understand, because they said if they have to work overtime, it's $49. They want to raise it to, or $49 if a regular goes out there and $15 if someone else goes out there. But they did pay high compliments to Don and Lauren for keeping that going. Here is at this point, the Silver Dollar, which this year was called the Lazy Days this year, which runs right before the state show at the end of August, will move to Madison, and the state show held on Labor Day weekend also. Memorial Day is up in the air, but has just recently put down a deposit for Sunnyview for a smaller 3-day show. Paper Valley was sold out of stalls and had to wait list last year, but will stay at Sunnyview only because of the being from the Northeast Wisconsin Club. So you got two big shows that's leaving, and it's not because of the money that they're leaving for, it's because of the way the grounds are kept out there and the staffing. So if you're putting money out in there and for staffing and that, I think that staffing should be put out there. So I will be voting against this.
Supervisor Farah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few comments, and then I'm going to ask for an opinion from Mr. Bogner and our financial director. This last week, I attended a Wisconsin Towns Association educational seminar, and I attended a budget session of that seminar, which is put on by a UW Extension specialist that deals with budget. During that process, she said that if they passed the state law that says if you raise your fees, you have to reduce your levy to correspond with the fee increases. Can either one of you comment on that?
There were certain instances where that applied, but it didn't apply everywhere. I think it applied with, because people taking solid waste off or garbage collection off of their levy, they were not able, if they billed for that separately, they couldn't use that levy money for something else. There were a couple instances, I don't know what they are offhand, but that wasn't across the board for every fee you collect.
Okay, that...
I can get back to you if you want with more information on it, but...
I don't recall her indicating that, but other than just the fee. So you're saying there are exceptions to this, and this would not apply?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a quick question for Rob or anybody who might know this. How many events does Sunny View hold a year? What's your estimation?
60 paying events.
How many?
60.
60 paid events?
Yeah, there's quite a few more that are run by county departments. We work with the DNR and some of the things that happen over there as well.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Widener.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a question of back to what Supervisor Rowe talked about. Did I hear correctly that we changed the 5% increase to 2.5% increase?
That's in this resolution, yes.
Okay, I would visualize that as being a substantial change, actually.
Supervisor Finch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the reasons that the prices have gone up a little bit is a couple times I'd say something to the county exec, and he says, he says, you're still not getting enough money in to pay for all your stuff. That's number one. Number two, Supervisor Eakin, you and I must see a lot of different people. Because I'm out there for the fair, and I'm out there for Life Fest. And all I do is I go and I talk to people. And I never had one major bad comment. Not through the fair. When I do the horses for the fair, and I talk to the people there, I never had one bad comment whatsoever. All I've had was good comments as far as how our park department and the personnel have utilized. In fact, there was a one where a guy had trouble. Lauren was still with us. I called him up, and Lauren said he'll be there in a couple of minutes. And Lord and behold, the guy figured about 20 minutes, half hour. A couple of minutes, Lauren was there. So I don't know who you're talking to, but sure than the same people I'm talking to, because I've had nothing but perfect comments on this. Thank you.
Supervisor Haig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was a no vote on this the last time. As you can see, the committee vote was 5-0 on this, and I supported this simply because I took into consideration Supervisor Egan's concerns, but on the backside of that, I think we're on an edge here of maybe losing some of those 60 events out there just because we're losing money on them. And I don't think that was talked about at all. In fact, I know it was not talked about at all during the last proceeding, simply because Rob was not asked to talk about that. But I think that if the rates don't increase minimally, which I think this proposal shows a very minimal increase, I think the county runs the risk of losing some of what's going on there because we're losing too much money on some of those events, period. So, Rob, I don't know if you have that number that you shared during the committee, but I know it was a fairly substantial number. And also, please share that this 2.5% may or may not be static for the next 5 years? Thank you.
On your original question, I guess the best way to do a comparison is to put forth that the operational budget for the Expo Center runs at around $323,000, and we bring in about just roughly $200,000. So we do operate, if you want to put it that way, we do operate the Expo at a loss. And what was your other question?
I think that the question during the committee was, what happens if we identify certain areas of this document, of this ordinance, that we can raise some of the fees to help retain some of that lost revenue? We can change this document. I think you had made us aware of changes could be made to this document.
Well, if you're looking at customizing it to the various facilities, we're not able to do that just yet. We're working towards trying to do a cost ratio on how much it costs to run a building, our operational costs versus what we bring in. I know that finance has just started that process this year, so we don't have any tracking on it. It's our intent to kind of correspond or associate our costs with what we're bringing in revenue-wise, but that won't be possible for a couple of years yet.
Thank you.
Supervisor Warnke.
Well, I'm reading in here that they're going to withhold raising them up for 2016 until 2017. My question is, if we're losing money, why are we not raising the fees up and maybe even segregating the funds that we could get from the increases to do the improvements that Supervisor Egan talked about, or any other improvement? It's just not really too cool if you're losing money and you're not going to raise the fees for 2 more years. I don't understand that. Is there any way you can explain that?
Certainly. The first 2 years, if you note in the resolution, we're removing the discount, the 15% discount, incrementally, and it'll be down to 0. We'll be doing away with it for year 2018. Now, what that does is obviously it brings in more revenue because we're not discounting as much over those 2 years. So we figured it out that we're still looking at a 5% income over those first 2 years, roughly. So as we let up on the discounting, we're bringing in more revenue.
But if you're going to be bringing in more revenue and you're losing shows, you're going to be losing more money. I think you need to cater to these people that are coming in there and using these facilities. We spent a lot of money on that horse arena, and we've done a lot of money in improving that Sunnyview Expo Center. We got to get something back on this investment. So I guess that's my feeling on it. I don't know what else to say, but I just don't think if you're losing money, you don't withhold and not raise things and improve them. Thank you.
If I can respond to it, we're not losing any shows. If we are confirming, I think, here in the near future, have they put down the deposits? We have deposits for 3 more shows, actually. So I'm not familiar with who's leaving at this time.
Supervisor Skellinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Way, what are kind of the timelines we're coming up against, or the hard deadlines for having a new schedule in place in terms of booking future shows or events?
Yeah, it's critical. I hope I made that plain in the resolution that once this schedule runs out in 2015, there is no schedule, so we have nothing to go off of. I'm not even sure how to deal with it at that point, but more importantly, we're coming up to a point where some of the clientele are looking to put together estimates for what their costs are, not just in 2015, but beyond. So we're looking to oblige that. And I think that's explained in the resolution as well. So as a courtesy, we're trying to put it out, as we have in the past, a couple more years in front of when this expires so they can do their cost estimates.
Thank you. And is it possible, at some point in the future, say a year, 2 years down the road, to amend the whole table?
You can do it at any time. We do bring in, I think we've done cost adjustments to the schedule. Usually that's a new facility that we're introducing, but I would say that's up to the board.
We wouldn't be locked in for the next 5 years at this rate. I mean, if something came about where we needed to make improvements, needed to increase revenue, or thought that the fees were too high, it would just take a resolution or a new ordinance to alter that.
Unless I'm wrong.
Or, Mr. Votto, would you like to?
You can amend that at any time, but what you can't do is if you had a lease that said for 5 years you're going to get it at $100 a month, you can't change the lease in midstream to say $150. I mean, whatever you had locked in when the lease was signed is it, unless both parties agree to a different rate. I mean, usually, anybody that's renting from you is going to agree to a lower rate. But if you try to raise it, you're going to have problems. So, but you could change it at any time for future leases to a higher rate if you wanted to.
Thank you very much.
Supervisor Egan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to enlighten on what Supervisor Warnke just said. These people that supposedly are leaving now, Vicki said she don't know of any, or Rob, but they're right here, they're leaving. But anyways, they're not leaving to go to a cheaper spot. They're going to go where it's better facilities. When you go down to the Alliant in Madison, that's not a cheaper spot. It's to have the facilities and to have the help in that personnel there. That's what they're looking for.
Thank you.
Supervisor Konitsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All I know is we must be doing something right out there because they're coming from out of state quite a ways, and I have heard very, very, if not any, complaints. Prices are not that high. We have a wonderful facility. I've been out there a number of times, and I must miss it at the wrong time then, because when I'm out there, I'm very satisfied what I see, and the people are coming from quite a ways to our facility, so we must be doing some things right. Thank you.
Supervisor Ramos.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I initially had the same question that Supervisor Rowe had as well. That being said, the difference, the 2.5% that we have before us tonight, to me, I do feel that is a substantial change. I also feel it puts these fee changes a little bit more in line with some of the other fee changes we've seen with other departments within the county. I do feel that if we don't take some form of action in the near future, we could be looking at losing some of the bookings. It just makes sense that these organizations have to have their schedules in line in advance, and I would have to think they'd need at least a year to do that. So I'd urge you to move forward with this tonight. There were some questions in regards to better facilities. I don't know whether that's true or not true. What I'd say is I think that's for a later time, not for the issue on the table tonight in regards to the fees. So I'd urge you to support this. I do think it's much more reasonable than what we looked at our last meeting.
Supervisor Widener.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. Back to a procedure question. The council at the beginning for the question of Supervisor Rowe said it was up to the board to decide whether it's a substantial change or not. Do we need to vote on that as to whether it's a substantial change, or did we move ahead?
I thought he said it was the chair's.
You could move ahead with this. I mean, what Robert's Rules of Order says is no motion can be renewed during the same session in which it has already been before the Assembly, except when renewal is permitted by a specific rule. So, the question really comes up, and this is a question of fact for you to determine. Is this a substantially different resolution than was brought up a month ago?
Okay, but basically we can just go ahead and move forward with this?
Yeah, unless there's somebody that moves that this is out of order because of the reason that I just gave.
Okay.
And that motion's carried by the board.
Okay. Thank you.
Supervisor Keel.
I would urge that we move forward for what a lot of people said, but one of the comments that they're not moving for the money, and I don't know what a no vote would mean then, other than that wouldn't help anything. So I would urge that we pass that.
Thank you. Okay, we'll vote on our little iPad. Pressure left. Did you get it? Pressure left.
Bob's got it.
Can you take it and he can say, oh, he wants to vote?
Does it light up when you press the...
Johnny, could you help him?
Sometimes they push it when they're embarrassed and then they leave it doesn't work. That is passed. Resolution 7892014, disallow claim of Nikki Bieber. Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for resolution number 789-2014.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Carried. Ordinance number 7992014. Amend Chapter 21.05, Parent 6 of the General Code of Winnebago County entitled Fuel Flowage Fees. Supervisor Warnke.
I move for your approval of 7992014.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? Carried. Resolution number 8092014. Authorize execution of lease between Winnebago County and Basler Turbo Conversions, LLC, doing business as Basler Freight Service. Supervisor Warnke.
Move for your approval of resolution 8092014.
Been moved and seconded. Supervisor Roll.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only question I have is that the document says it's effective September 1st. Is this already in effect?
As far as I know it is.
So it'll be October 1st because I had intended to bring this the last month.
So it'll be effective, if we approve
October
it tonight,
1st.
it'll be effective tomorrow?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Supervisor Haig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In regards to the length of this agreement, it says 20 years, and I thought I read somewhere in here that it made mention of an area within the administrative building. And I'm just curious if you can clarify if there is rental space within either the current or what may be the future administrative building?
Basler is currently renting space in the west wing of the terminal, which we, I guess, previously it was Orion Flight Services. And if there is a chance that we do get a new administration building, we would have leased space in there for them.
So does this agreement necessitate the additional square footage to accommodate Basler?
If I understand your question, I think that there was already planning for the new administration building, proposed new administration building, for them to be in there already.
Right, and that is precisely what the question is, because I'm not sure that there has been any architectural design or anything brought to this board approving any administrative / terminal building, much less one that would accommodate Basler Flight Service.
Well, yeah. What we're saying is that if the planning does go forward and the board does approve a new building, that we would have space in there for them potentially. It's for planning purposes, we have to put it in there. Otherwise, then Basler is on their own then to construct their own facility. We'd rather gain the rent from them in a same building as the administration. And that was our plan all along.
Okay, with that understanding, that sounds a little convoluted to me. I will not be supporting this resolution.
Supervisor Finch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got two short questions. With this 20-year lease, dollars per square foot, are we getting roughly the same as any other airport within like a 50-mile radius? Or are we a little higher, a little lower, or what?
It's difficult to base it on other airports. Every airport is different. Every facility is different. This comes out in the terminal or in their office facility, comes out to about $20, $21 a square foot at this rate, which is comparable to what they were getting before.
Okay, what my point was that, is it equal to Appleton, Fond du Lac, whatever?
Well, you can't compare other facilities because
Right.
each one because they're new construction, their rates may be different, square footage that they require may be different, so it's difficult to.
Are we at least getting enough money per square foot to pay for the maintenance and taking care of the building?
Yes.
So we are maintenance free as far as the taxpayers having to kick into it.
I
You
believe
make
so,
enough
yes.
money on that to take care of it.
I would say so, yes.
Then I'll support it. Thank you.
Supervisor Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You may have answered my question, but the question is, are we getting about the same amount with this consolidations we got before the combination? I mean, the individual leasing amount?
There's a slight drop because there was one hangar, a county-owned hangar that Basler, with the consolidation, dropped from their lease space. Otherwise, it's about the same. So there really is no drastic reduction in revenue for the airport, rather.
Thank you.
Supervisor Wingren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Peter, maybe you can help me out in understanding this better. Those of us who have been here a while might remember when Orion first approached the county to come into the airport, there was a battle royal by Basler to keep them out. I mean, it went on. I mean, this was a high pressure, let's keep them out. Now, all of a sudden, in this, if you look at line 14, Basler desires to terminate the existing lease agreements and enter a new agreement to lease. Why?
Because they acquired the assets of Orion Flight Services, so there is only one fixed base operator now. So rather, we're just terminating both leases and then establishing a new lease with Basler.
Well, I go out there sometimes and my car is low on fuel. Can we build a BP station attached to the airport too? Why are we building something That should be a private business. Why are we building this?
We're not building anything at this point. They're just leasing the space in the existing structures that Orion was in, and they're continuing to lease the space in the structures that Basler was previously leasing. We have constructed nothing new.
I think it is also, I heard this before, I'm not sure. Could you verify Basler's is no longer, the family no longer associated with this? It's the name only?
It's a name only, yes.
Well.
Supervisor Singstock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to add on to something that Supervisor Haig brought out. How can we lease out some space in the future when we don't know what the cost of that space is going to be? Doesn't make any sense to me.
We'd have to do an amendment to the lease if there was a difference in cost. But we haven't gotten to the point of, all we're saying is that the county intends to lease space to Basler Flight Service if and when there is a new facility. That's all that says. We will provide space for them somewhere.
Supervisor Skellinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If and when the county has a new building, will these rates be comparable with the newer construction at the Appleton Airport?
I don't know why we're comparing with Appleton Airport, because they have their facilities are different than ours. I can't say that. I can't answer that question really if they're comparable or not.
Are they higher or lower?
I don't know.
Thank you.
Supervisor Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Peter, can we get into a situation with Basler's where we can do this on an annual basis until we settle everything else that we're hearing about tonight?
That's up to the board if that's what they would like to do.
Because it appears to me that one of the hang-ups here is we're leasing it for 20 years and we don't know what we're going to be doing in 3 years, and that could be a valid point. And if we could get into a year by year, it would also, I think, give us some flexibility down the road in terms of when the new facility is around, what we can do with that lease in terms of maybe raising or lowering the fee. So I would suggest maybe we go year by year. And the other thing I want to say is we've heard people talking about what is the Appleton Airport charge, what is the Wausau Airport charge. That's totally irrelevant because every airport has their own negotiated lease with these people, and it might not even be the same people. So we negotiate our lease depending on what our needs are and what their needs are in a mutual fashion, just like every other airport does. And the actual cost is totally different because of each circumstance is totally different. Thank you.
Supervisor Wernke.
I'd just like to remind this board that Basler is probably one of our best tenants out at the airport. They not only run this FBO, but they also run the DC conversion company, which employs a lot of employees. They bring in a lot of money into this airport. This is going to be covered one way or the other. If we don't build a new building, it's going to remain the way it is. And if we do, it's gonna work out. They have an option to get out of it then, I would say. So I don't know why anything would have to be changed.
Supervisor Rule.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question of Supervisor Olson. Are you making an amendment to this to change it to a 1 year? If you are, I'll second it.
No, I'm not. I'm just suggesting.
Thank you.
Okay, there are no other questions. We'll vote by our little iPad. Vote aye if you approve, no if you disapprove. Do you have to change that up there? That is passed. Resolution number 8192014. Authorize a transfer of $15,000 from the airport fund balance to a capital project to reconstruct Taxiway B to cover Winnebago County's portion of the engineering and design costs. Supervisor Wernke.
Move for your approval of Resolution 8192014.
It's been moved and seconded. Okay, we'll vote by no questions. We'll vote by our iPad. Vote aye if you approve, no if you disapprove. That is passed. Resolution 8292014, authorize a capital project to resurface the maintenance facility parking lot at a cost of $367,000 to be funded with a bond issue. Supervisor Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for your approval of resolution number 8292014.
Been moved and seconded. Supervisor Haig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make an amendment to this resolution on line 21. I'd like to put a period after the words general fund and strike with said fund being reimbursed from a subsequent bond issue. The fiscal note says that
Chuck, you want to answer? You have any problem with it?
No, I have no problem with it.
Okay.
There was no second.
Oh, there was no second. Oh, there is a second.
Yeah, it seems shocking to me that we would reimburse to the general fund from a bond issue, our general fund balance.
Can you answer him?
That's correct. Actually, next month I was going to bring in a resolution to substitute general fund balance for a whole bunch of other ones that have already been approved. I was going to do this one at the same time, but if you want to change that one now, that's fine.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll vote by our iPad. Okay. All in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Now back to the original resolution. Vote aye if you approve, no if you disapprove. That is passed. Resolution 8392014, opposed expansion of federal control under the Clean Water Act. Supervisor Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for approval of Resolution 83-9-2014.
Been moved and seconded.
Brief explanation, if I might, Mr. Chairman. I do not bring this forward because it's something that I dreamed up. It's at the request and advice of NACO, which is the National Counties Association. It's also at the request of the Farm Bureau, which is probably the largest farmers lobbying organization in the United States. And in addition to that, we received an email from the Director, Tom Davies of Land Water, I believe it's NASDA, N-A-S-D-A, which is the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture of these United States. They also recommend that this proposed rule be defeated. It's before the EPA. The rule itself is 404 by definition. The resolution I have before you, I went on the website for NACO and they had 3 different resolutions I could pick from to bring forward. I picked the simplest one and easiest one to read. The intent of all of those is that if this rule is passed, it's going to be far too punitive and far too hard on not only our counties with stormwater, or not stormwater, but issues with ditches, etc., and also our farmers. So I would ask for your support of this resolution. And I might add, if I might amend it a little bit, Mr. Chairman, as far as who it should be sent to. Do I have
Go
that?
ahead.
With the approval of the board, it says it should go to the Wisconsin Counties Association. It should also go to the National Counties Association, NACO.
You have that?
If I have approval of the board.
We will see that that's done that way.
Thank you. So I ask for your support.
Okay, Supervisor Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to postpone this indefinitely. I say that because I and others have brought measures before this board, and I got the message that the reason we should not be considering any resolutions that were politically divisive, issues that didn't directly affect the county per se, and also we should not be speaking for our constituents. In other words, what one supervisor told us, that we should be lobbying or contacting the representatives directly. And that's what I think should be done. And also, another reason why I think it should be postponed indefinitely is I'm confused. I mean, he cleared up that it should be sent to the National Counties Association, but why should it be sent to the governor when it's a federal issue? And I'm not clear of whether it should be sent to our state representatives or to our federal representatives. So on those grounds, on the basis of what the message I got from this board, from what I've brought and others have brought, is that we should not be considering that the best way to handle it is to have supervisors contact their legislators directly.
Supervisor Olson on
the resolution.
Okay. Supervisor Thompson.
On the amendment or the resolution?
On the amendment.
That is the motion to lay it on the table.
Yes.
Yes. As you know, I very strongly believe that the county should stay with things that affect a majority of our county members. There is a huge variety of interests and opinions on this sort of issue within Winnebago County. I don't think any of us can honestly pretend to represent majority opinion on this kind of a motion. And therefore I strongly support laying it on the table as we did with a similar motion last month. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Olson on the amendment.
No, on the resolution.
Supervisor Rowe on the amendment.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Just a minor clarification to what Supervisor Norton said. You said you weren't sure which representatives it would go to. It clearly states all legislators representing Winnebago County constituents. So I would take that to mean state and federal. Thank you.
If I might respond.
Go ahead.
I expected, after last month's meeting to receive some comments in regard to this, but I bring this forward at the request of the association we belong to. Now, what's the impact on Winnebago County? It's clearly stated in their document. If this could affect our roads and roadside ditches, control of those, permitting of those, if you want to clean them out, establish new ditches, you would have a new control, which would be the federal government. I'm reading from their document. Flood control channels would be regulated. Stormwater sewers would be regulated. Now, that don't impact us because we don't have any stormwater sewers, but we do have ditches which are flood control and storm water related issues. Green infrastructure, I'm not sure what that is referring to, but I think the point from NACO is that it's obvious if this is passed, it will not only have an effect on Winnebago County, but all of the counties within the United States. So that is the direction and the cause that I bring it before you. It is not political, it's not personal, it's just that it was recommended that I do this, and I really think they're going too far personally, but so that's my response to the comments that were made.
Thank you. Claude, your light's on again. Did you want to talk again?
If I may, with all due respect to Representative Fari, I understand his view. I understand the nature of his constituency. But the constituencies of members of this county board vary tremendously. They come from all walks of life, all kinds of ways of making a living, and they have a hugely variable view on legislation of this sort. I just don't think it's appropriate for a county board to take a position on an issue that happens to be pushed by one part of our constituencies when it really has little, if anything, to do with county business.
Supervisor Singstock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have the highest respect for Supervisor Fari also, but I'm strongly against any of this Republican-Democrat stuff that should stay outside the doors of this room. And the rest of the time on this board, I will always vote against anything that's Republican or Democrat or federal. It's anything that we have no control over. We should only concentrate on the things that we can control. Thank you.
Supervisor Rule. Supervisor Finch.
Well, I'm a little confused. I guess you
You got one.
work for the people, vote for the people. Which I think this resolution does.
He's pushing on.
But then again, if we set it aside, I'm not really doing my job. So, and for some of the supervisors, I understand where they're coming from. But we're here to vote for the people, not for us, not for what my ideas are, but for what the people in general wants. So I have to support this resolution. So, thank you.
Supervisor Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't see this as a partisan issue at all. This comes down from NACO, which is the National Association of Counties. And you can't say that they're partisan one way or the other. They put out policy briefs as they are apt to do on a lot of different things. This one happens to be a position and policy brief on what's going to happen if this goes through. The proposal would increase the number of county-owned and maintained ditches falling under the Federal Clean Water Act. Many counties experience multi-year delays waiting for approval of Section 404 permits. Counties would remain responsible for locally owned ditches, but the federal oversight for related maintenance and new infrastructure would increase. We have enough federal oversight, and I thought we were for trying to maintain as much control as we can here in the county. And to have them come in and jeopardize what we're doing with our ditches and our waterways doesn't seem to make sense for me. Thank you.
I don't know what's going on, but it goes. Supervisor Keel.
Again, I have to be consistent and agree with Supervisor Singstock and the others. This is the EPA. EPA director serves at the pleasure of the president. There's some public items worked in, and you can exert pressure that way. In fact, if after the meeting you want to go ask Mr. Harris, if elected, what he would do to exert pressure one way or the other, Again, staying in our lanes, I agree with the motion to set aside. Thank you.
Okay, we'll vote by our iPad. Vote aye if you approve, no if you disapprove.
To postpone indefinitely.
To postpone indefinitely. Failed. Okay, the amendment, now back to the original resolution. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Wait. I want to make another motion.
Okay.
I want to make a motion to have this moved back and sent back to the legislative committee, because there's not a lot we know about this issue. There's a lot more that I just began investigating over the weekend, and that's my motion to.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to refer it back to the legislative committee.
We don't have one.
Yes, we'll be meeting. We'll be meeting November 17th. You got something, I believe, on your desk today that we're reconvening.
That's the end of November.
24th.
Supervisor Farley?
Thank you. I believe if you read this, there's a deadline for responding to this, and I believe it is in October. Where did I read it? October, by the end of October?
Mike, you want to let him vote it up or down?
No, I think it should be further studied. That's, we don't know much about this issue. And with all due respect, the issue I brought up for it, NACO also supported. So I think it should be looked at thoroughly, and that's why I said have it sent back to the legislative committee.
Supervisor Widener.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can we get rid of this trying to fiddle around with the rules and get down to voting on the issue instead of just trying to work around it?
We're trying to. Supervisor Farley, did you want to?
I spoke, sir.
So what's my choice, Mr. Corporation Counsel?
No.
We're voting on Norton
To send it to legislative.
to send it to the legislative committee. You're voting to send it to the legislative committee, which is out of date in November when we're having the meeting. Oh, that's the way. Yeah. Vote aye if you want to send it to the legislative committee. Vote no if you don't.
The vote is to send it to the legislative committee, that we don't have a legislative committee, and it's going to be too late.
That has failed. Now back to the original resolution. Okay, we'll vote by our little iPad. Vote aye if you approve. Vote no if you disapprove.
Are you voting to oppose it?
That is passed. Resolution 8492014, authorize rescheduling the November 2014 Winnebago County Board meeting. Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move for resolution number 849, 2014.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Supervisor Robel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move that we adjourn until Tuesday, October 21st at 6 p.m.
We are adjourned.